Let's talk organics. So a big part of organics is using reference images, which you can find just on the internet, wherever. Now you can also use reference images for architecture, but we're primarily going to be using it for organics because it can be very helpful to look at an image of an organic, which is typically not a basic shape, and to be able to see your curvatures, your different colors, and then just from that you can do a pretty good mock-up of your shapes, your palettes, and your details. Now, for our purposes, we're actually going to be following techniques we've used in our previous videos, and I would encourage you to look at those how to builds, which are in this playlist, by looking at shapes and flow and palettes and details, and we're going to use all of these techniques in our organics. So let's look at that. First, we're going to start with shape. Now, what we're building are two different things. Number one, a creature, that is an octopus in this case, and number two, a plant, that is a tree. Now, an octopus and a tree both have a column as their basic shape. They also both conveniently have limbs, one actual limbs and the other is tree roots. And so we've extended those off of the central columns to give us basically a starting point for both of these organics. From here, this is where we see our shapes diverge. So we have a little dome / half circle on top of the octopus, and then for our tree, which in this case we're doing a broken tree, we are extending the trunk. Now if we were going to make this live, we would go out further and then bring out some limbs. Once again, making sure, as in our flow video, that we keep out any straight lines. We can do diagonals and whatnot. And then from this step, we start basically smoothing out the shape by adding more curvatures, by getting rid of those straight lines that we talked about in our flow video. And this is especially important with organics because nature does not have a lot of straight lines. It's very curvy. It has a lot of squiggles. It has a lot of curves. And so putting that into your basic shapes is very important. Now, some of these change a bit as we add our details and we add our palette, but this at least gives us something to start with. So let's look at our palette. Here is our palette for our octopus. We got some nice blues here. And then this is our tree. Now, I basically, when I do trees, I think about what is my roots, where's my trunk, and then that goes up into the leaves. So I've basically colored out the entirety of the shape of the tree. For creatures, it's a little bit different. I'm basically looking at colors that I can transition from one color into the next, particularly making sure that I have some highlights and then some deeper colors for my shadows. Putting that into these shapes. Here is my octopus. I have some darker colors on the bottom, which you can see there, and then I've gone up into lighter colors as I go up. And then I have basically literally just substituted in my palette blocks into my detail blocks. Here I have my tree. Now I've used exactly what I've laid out in my palette and started out with my copper going into my spruce. I have a bit of a curve here with the branch, once again getting rid of those straight lines. And I've let some of that copper age because as I was putting it together, I just thought, man, this is a nice way to add contrast. That brings us to our details. Now, this actually is a pretty fun looking, I thought, for such a small scale octopus. And then we've added in some landscaping details too. Now this guy would be underwater, but for our purposes, I wanted to lay out a bit of coral. And here I have used the glow lichen to basically smooth out some of my color transitions. I'm not in love with the cap on the top, but it does what it's supposed to do because I wanted to round out and smooth out that shape a little bit more. Now, going on to my tree, I have a similar gray tone additions through my details with my pale hanging moss up top, again the glow lichen, which is helping me to merge my palettes, and then that landscaping down at the bottom. Now this tree had a lot of details in the copper, so I didn't have to add much. Now these are small scale creations. The bigger you go with these organics, the more details you can add and the more interesting items you can add. So for example, this is a larger tree that I've mocked out. And with this larger tree, I can add, for example, a little bird cage hanging from a branch where I can put in my bed and treasure chest, have it be a living area. For the octopus, we're actually going to watch a brief Adventure Jane clip from The 5 Keys Part 3, where I created a much larger octopus.
Think what I had. I don't see anything. I think we're safe.
Look to your left. Look to your left. Just a little bit.
Oh, a
Stop
door.
cutting seaweed. Look
Now
a
we
little more
talking.
left. A little more left.
I'm inside. I'm safe. Ish.
Don't move. Don't
Move. You're literally moving right now.
So with organics, you start out with your reference images. Get a good picture of what this is going to look like. From there, you mark out your basic shapes and then kind of the more unnatural shapes coming off of that to get your basic look. From here, you start smoothing out your straight lines, and then you go to your palette, deciding what your colors are, and then substituting those into your shape that you have created. Finally, you add some details to complete your organics. And once again, the bigger you go with these, the more interesting you can make them. But that's a personal choice, depending on how much time you have. So, thank you for building with us. And in the future, I'm going to be making some more advanced techniques coming off of my basic videos of how to build. And so you can look forward to some of those. Thank you for watching. Bye.